Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Can you use your land to contribute to a broad solution to solve the number one issue within trucking, and that is parking? I don't know, but I have someone here with us who can help us answer that question. With me today in the hot seat, I've got co-founder and CEO Evan Shelley of the Truck Parking Club. Evan, welcome to the hot seat.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so we're gonna heat things up here in just a moment, sir. But before we do, just take 30 seconds and tell us about the work that you're doing at Truck Parking Club.
Yeah, Truck Parking Club is a network of truck parking locations throughout the U.S. Those locations are made up of properties and business owners like trucking companies, CDL schools, tow truck companies. We have home builders with extra space, fertilize companies with extra space. Really, any business or property owner that has property that's adequate for truck parking is can be on our platform. And what we do is we take those properties and we help truckers find those properties and the availability of parking at those properties right there on our platform where you can reserve truck parking in real time. And we do hourly, daily, and monthly.
That's phenomenal. So let's jump in right there. So I kind of teased this a little bit out. Rebecca Brewster, her annual report, top trucking issues. This was the number one issue in terms of parking space. So let's back up a little bit. How did you find yourself being in the middle of trying to create a solve for this very serious problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my background is commercial and industrial land development deals.
Mhm.
So I would go out and find these opportunities for land development and then entitle those properties and ultimately end up selling them to a large developer for apartments or an
Mhm.
industrial warehouse or whatever the case was. So a couple of years ago, I was doing a deal where the property was zoned industrial. I was looking at it for some use industrial, and I found out that there was a huge demand for truck parking in the area that this property was in. And I went to the municipality and talked with them, and they told me that they weren't going to allow truck parking there, even though it was zoned industrial. And there were people parking trucks at adjacent properties. And they said, we just don't want to allow any more truck parking here. And that got me thinking, because if there's this huge demand for it, and it seems to be difficult to build more of it, then what's really happening in the space? So over the last couple of years, really exploring that, getting to know people, getting to know truckers, getting to know logistics experts in logistics and supply chain, and from that really drew that there was a problem. And at first I thought, well, I'm just going to go out and buy a bunch of truck parking, just a classic roll up
Mhm.
model. And what I found was it was a very hot real estate market, which I knew, and also that scaling truck parking from an operational standpoint can be very, very difficult. And there's very few people that have done it with any scale. No one's really done it in massive scale.
Mhm.
Um, but there's a few people that have a few dozen properties.
Mhm.
Um, so my next thought was like, how do I scale this as quickly as possible outside of like traditional real estate development?
Mhm.
How do we apply technology to do that? And I'll tell you another little anecdote where, like, I have a friend that I've known for years, and at one point in time we were struggling, entrepreneurs trying to make our way, and um, we were having lunch because after a few years he had really built up his business and got a lot of credibility, built a great team, and they raised a lot of money to build a metaverse, like 12 million bucks or something. And we were having lunch celebrating that, and I was telling him what I was working on. I was like, I'm just going to go buy a bunch of truck parking. And he was like, he looks out the window and like points over, and he's like, there's a parking lot over there that you could park trucks on, just use technology. And I thought that was like, I was like, no, that's dumb, that's silly, because I was just such a real estate person, you
Mhm.
know. And so ultimately he was right. It just took me another 6 or 8 months to realize it. So yeah, these events that I was fortunate to pay attention to kind of put me in this position.
I appreciate the humility of the way that you're kind of describing this. Um, But the issue that we're talking about, this is a big deal. So for our audience who may not fully grasp the depths of this problem, can you just kind of quantify, like, what's the real issue here? What is the, you know, the key pain point for truck drivers, the number of truck drivers versus the available trucking spots? Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
So there's really a massive shortage, and I don't believe the numbers to be supremely accurate, to be honest, but we know it's
Mhm,
bad. That is
mhm,
that is a for sure thing. We know it's bad.
mhm,
The numbers that are thrown out there is there's like a 600,000 space shortage. You know, how you come up with that number, I'm not quite sure, but it is some version of that. It may be 500,
mhm,
it may be a million and a half. I don't know. It's not good.
mhm,
And you got to think about availability in terms of overnight or multi-night, and those are all different things. But the number that's thrown around is 600,000 space shortage, one space for every 11 trucks, or sorry, yeah, one space for every 11 trucks. I thought I inverted that. Yeah. Um, and so all those numbers lead you to think like it is a huge problem. And what, like, from like a first principle standpoint, it's like, okay, huge issue. And then trucking in itself is already difficult enough. So how do you resolve that, and that that's really like the impetus for the business is like the trucker is taking the brunt of this one part of their job, which should be a given, is
mhm,
not because of this huge shortage. It makes their job, in some cases, infinitely more difficult to have something that just should be, you know, easily obtainable, and it's not.
mhm. So how do we get here? I mean, like people that, because the average person going down the highway, they see truck stops everywhere. So like, and when I've had conversations with people who are not in our industry, they're like, how can that be? It seems like there's trucking, endless amount of trucking spots available. So how did we get to this point of having such a pronounced shortage?
Yeah, I think it's probably, kind of like the anecdote I told you about the land deal that I was doing,
Hmm.
where the municipality was adamant not to allow truck parking at this location. And
Hmm.
now compound that throughout the US, and that's when it starts to be a little problem, and then you start to run out of land to even put it in good places.
Hmm.
And on top of that, most municipalities try to move it out to remote places that isn't convenient. So yeah, I mean, the forces at work are like NIMBY, development, just the standard issues that come with development, the cost, um, and all adding all those things together results in this really neglect for thinking about what the trucker actually needs. I mean, I think, if you could go back 20 years, if the federal government had been like, okay, we need to continue building these rest areas, we probably wouldn't be here. Um,
Yeah.
but that's, it's not that simple. It's not quite that simple. I mean, you could probably do a podcast just on how that came to be, right? You could probably do multiple
Hmm.
podcasts on that. So you just have all these compounding factors. I guess what it all really comes down to is just no one really thought about it as it was happening. Everyone just said it's a problem, and then now we're here, and it's like, ooh, like, okay, we're gonna allocate 750 million, but 750 million isn't gonna fix it either. Like it will help,
Hmm.
and that's great, but I mean, we need like all hands on deck. Like we need really extreme focus groups on like getting this accomplished. So we want to be a part of that. We want to help be a
Yeah.
part of that.
Well, I think this is great, and you're obviously, you guys are putting your money where your mouth is in terms of providing a solution. So let's talk about it. I mean, what are you doing currently through this business venture, and how is that different from other folks that are also trying to address the solve here?
Yeah. So from a business standpoint, from a let's define it more. From a technology standpoint, we are creating a platform where truckers can easily see availability of truck parking in real time and reserve it in real time for one day or multiple days. Typically, we see 2 to 10 days or monthly. And having, if you look at a location and there's 8 spaces available, you have the ability to book those spaces in real time. Um, that is for the standard person out there that's not a trucker. They would say, okay, you're telling me there's other apps that have, user updated availability, and then you have this instantly reservable. There's not really a difference, but there is. There is. You just have to be a trucker to understand the difference.
Hmm.
And so that is one of the key differentiators
Hmm.
on how we create and maintain a product that is ultimately so customer centric and trucker centric, to give them that availability, to know that availability is there, so they don't drive 10, 20, 50 minutes out of their way and then realize there's no availability.
Right.
We help people, we help truckers ultimately know if they have availability or not, and then book it within a couple minutes. And if you're a
Hmm.
recurring user, a repeat user, you're booking in seconds.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's one of the key differentiators, from a business standpoint. And then the other would be, we're literally taking any types of spaces that are in and around logistics or industrial and putting
Hmm.
them on one platform, whereas creating more supply, which I believe that no one, well, I don't know if any company's really done that at any scale at all. For truck
Right.
parking in particular, I mean, there's companies that have done stuff for like RVs and things like that, but
Hmm.
specifically focused on truck parking. And we're hyper focused on that because we know, getting a client that's a truck parking operator that allocates us a few spaces is fine. But that truck parking really already exists. Maybe it's not marketed well enough. Maybe people have a hard
Hmm.
time finding it. But ultimately, we're not moving the needle like we want. Now, when we get, we'll get these guys that have a huge empty back lot behind, um, maybe their business, whatever the business may be, a trucking company or whatever. Those parking spaces have never been available before. So we can add in a day, we bring on hundreds of spaces some days that were
Hmm.
never there before. So if you wanted to go develop that, that's an 18 to 24 month process and millions of dollars. So we're actually increasing that supply. We're not just trying to be a middleman on existing truck parking operations, because that's fine, and there's a model for that because we can help increase awareness, which is part of the mission. But it feels really great when we bring like 100 spaces on the platform at a random, location
Yeah.
that no one knew was there or available, and now people can come book it. Truckers can come book it.
Yeah. It's really powerful, just in terms of how thoughtful and efficient the whole approach is. Um, and also, I mean, like in terms of everybody has thoughts about this, but just it's efficient. It's good stewardship of the environment. You're not creating all types of new construction,
Yeah.
and so to me, it's just there's everybody wins in the situation. You mentioned mission, and part of that mission, as you see it, is working together to solve this problem. In what ways are you working with other folks to attack this issue?
Yeah, so I would say, kind of hitting on what I just said, um, a lot of these business owners get it. They understand
Hmm.
that what we're doing is creating more supply, and we're bringing availability to the platform to add more truck parking. So it's a really cool feeling to see some of our property members, like that light bulb clicks on, like, I'm not just monetizing this property, but I'm also adding to a change. And you see it most with like trucking companies. They're like, oh, I'm going to be able to monetize this, but also I'm helping out the situation
Hmm.
that's going on, which um, ultimately is great. And then it's just collaborating with other businesses, as far
Hmm.
as from like partnership standpoints, insight standpoints, just making a collective effort, um,
Hmm.
with anyone involved in logistics on, and it's really like, creating a, I don't know if this is the right word, but creating like a mantra for what we're working to accomplish, you know,
Hmm.
like solving the truck parking shortage together. So there's two sides of this marketplace, right? It is
Hmm.
business owners and property owners on one side and truckers on the other. And ultimately, collectively, we're solving the truck parking shortage together.
Yeah. I'm curious. I mean, you're a business guy. You talked about your history. Um, what have you learned about this industry as the initial kind of impetus of getting involved in this is it's a good business idea,
Mm,
right? Like there's a need, there's a pain, you jump
mm.
in. But the way that you talk about it, you can clearly see that you're connecting with these people from a relationship standpoint. Like, what have you learned about this industry as you've gotten here and you've begun to get traction and developing solutions for some solutions for this big problem?
Yeah, we go to we travel all across the U.S. We have a van, we have a team that travels. I travel with them as much as I can, and we go to trucking shows. I'm at a conference right now, Freight Waves conference in Cleveland. But we go to play events like Mid America Trucking Show, and through those types
Hmm.
of events, we get to meet the people that ultimately are impacted the most. Um, and get to know like what the actual pain points are, and are we solving the right problem? Like, is this actually a problem that we're
Hmm.
solving? And from the very beginning, we thought we were, but ultimately, the actual issues can be a little more intricate than what our original thought was, right? So getting to know the
Hmm.
people that are actually experiencing these issues has been instrumental. Just getting out there and meeting the truckers at trucking shows, and going out and also meeting our property members, and talking with them. And
Hmm.
you know a lot of them are blue collar um guys that like we met with a group in Kansas on our way out to Vegas last week, and just like a bull hauler, cattle hauler company, been in business 90 years, and was like telling us all about their company and their family and how long it's been in the family. And you just get to know these people that are contributing to part of the solution, but also um, really just really being able to resonate with, because I'm not a trucker. I don't have a trucking background, right? I could
Hmm.
make up some big story that like my someone in my family was or something, but that's not true. So what we do is we go out there and we talk with people and we shake people's hands and we get to know them, and talk with them about, what do you think the issues are? Are we
Hmm.
solving the right problem here, or is there something we should be doing different or better?
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think that's great. A couple more questions. First, well, two part with that. How can we learn more about the work that you're doing? And then, secondly, what's next for you guys? What can we expect from Truck Parking Club in the next 2, 3, 4, 5
Gotcha.
years?
So the best place to find us is going to be just going to truckparkingclub.com. On truckparkingclub.com, you're going to see our customer service number, and you're going to see in the footer of the website all of our social medias. So we're Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. We're on really all the socials. I would say we've seen a lot of our user base is on LinkedIn and TikTok and Facebook, and YouTube some
Mm-hmm.
too. So you can connect with us any of those places. And then what is next? Um, so we're at 98 locations across the US right now. Um, we are looking to do 5 to 10,000 locations. We believe we can do that in the next 3 to 5 years. Um,
Wow.
and ultimately, you know, marketplace business models are extremely difficult in the beginning. You know this, but I'm living it, and they're extremely difficult in the beginning. and then you get that initial momentum, and then you start to see some virality. Um, and if you ever can get to that organic inflection point or escape velocity, then it's one of the best business models you can ever have. But it's bridging that gap that we're very focused on getting there as quickly as possible. We're at 97, believe that number of properties to be at like 750, 750 to 1,000, to where we're like,
Mhm.
we have enough density. People are talking about us. People are using us. We have both sides of the marketplace very filled, to where we're providing tons of value. We think at that point, we'll reap the benefits of growing out the model. But until then, we're just hyper focused on adding more properties and maintaining and
Mhm.
continuing to iterate on a product that is hyper focused on usability for the trucker. Like, so building out
Mhm.
properties and continuing to create the product that a trucker needs. That's really it, and it's just going as quickly as possible.
Mhm. I love it. All right, last question. Just briefly, real quick, wild card question. One of our core values at Tenney Group is growth. So I'm curious, what's something that you're reading right now or a podcast that you're developing personally
Gotcha.
from?
Um, that's a great question. So I would say someone that resonates with me a lot right now, and it changes over time, but right now is a guy named Alex Hormozy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so he's very active on like YouTube. I mean, he's on all the socials now, but he provides a lot of value in his videos. So he built a company called Gym Launch, and um,
Mm-hmm.
sold it at 30 or 31, 32 years old for like $45 million. And now he's rolled up like a few $100 million in companies. And he provides a lot of valuable lessons. So I listen to a lot of his stuff. You can find him pretty much on any platform, but he makes a lot of videos on YouTube, and they're super insightful because he's a great salesman, great marketer. Um, so I learned a lot from him. I would say that's one that comes to top of mind. I'm always like ingesting something that'll make me better. And oh, now that I'm thinking about it, another guy that I came onto in the last month or two is surprising, but it's Rob Dyrdek. So he used to have this show like called like Rob and Big on MTV. He's the guy that always he like his shows like runs constantly on MTV. It's called like,
Okay.
I don't know, Ridiculousness or something, but that was like past career for him. And he is so good at optimizing businesses and optimizing his own life. It's called like the Dyrdek machine, I think is what he calls it. He has like a website and stuff, but just
Mm-hmm.
optimizing your life, from your personal life to your business life. Um, and it's a super interesting approach. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's hard to explain. You just have to listen to a few of his podcasts, but he just has a totally different approach on time management and actually tracking everything, like everything you do all day, every day. Which it sounds unreasonable, but he's been doing it himself for like 6 years, and he says, it's the best thing I've ever done. It is difficult to start, but once you create the habit of it, tracking everything from the food you eat to the people you talk to how you feel today on a quantifiable
Yeah.
level from like 1 to 10, um, that it can truly impact your life. So those are a couple of them.
Well, those are some good nuggets for our audience. What a conversation. We're rooting for you. Love the work that you're doing. That's going to do it for us here in the hot seat. We'll see you next time.